Hello again. This is going to be chapter 20 of Charlotte's Web, and the chapter is called The Hour of Triumph. Let's find out who's going to be triumphing. Special announcement, said the loudspeaker in quite a pompous voice. The management of the fair take great pleasure in presenting Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman and his famous pig. The truck bearing this extraordinary animal is now approaching the infield. Kindly step back and give the truck room to proceed. In a few minutes the pig will be unloaded in the special judging ring in front of the grandstand, where a special award will be made. Will the crowd please make way and let the truck pass? Thank you. Wilbur trembled when he heard this speech. He felt happy but dizzy. The truck crept slowly in low speed. Crowds of people surrounded it, and Mr. Arable had to drive carefully in order not to run over anybody. At last he managed to reach the judge's stand. Avery jumped out and lowered the tailgate. "I'm scared to death," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "All those people looking at us." "Cheer up," replied Mrs. Arable. "This is fun." "Unload your pig, please," said the loudspeaker. "All together now, boys," said Mr. Zuckerman. Several men stepped forward from the crowd to help lift the crate, but Avery was the busiest helper of them all. "Tuck your shirt in," cried Mrs. Zuckerman, "and tighten your belt. Your pants are coming down." "Can't you see I'm busy?" replied Avery in disgust. "Look," said Fern, pointing. "There's Henry." "Oh, don't shout, Fern," said her mother, "and don't point." "Can I please have some money?" said Fern. "Henry invited me to go on the Ferris wheel again, only I don't think he's got any money left. His has run out." Mrs. Arable opened her handbag. "Here," she said, "here's 40 cents. Now don't get lost, and be back by our regular meeting place by the pig pen soon." Fern raced off, ducking and dodging through the crowd in search of Henry. "The Zuckerman pig is now being taken from the crate," boomed the voice of the loudspeaker. "Stand by for an announcement." Templeton crouched under the straw at the bottom of the crate. "What a lot of nonsense, what a lot of fuss about nothing," he muttered. Over in the pig pen, silent and alone, Charlotte rested. Her 2 front legs embraced the egg sack. Charlotte could hear everything that was said on the loudspeaker. The words gave her courage. This was her hour of triumph. As Wilbur came out of the crate, the crowd clapped and cheered. Mr. Zuckerman took off his cap and bowed. Lurvy pulled his big handkerchief from his pocket and he wiped the sweat from the back of his neck. Avery knelt in the dirt by Wilbur's side, busy stroking him and showing him off. Mrs. Zuckerman and Mrs. Arable stood on the running track of the truck. "Ladies and gentlemen," said the loudspeaker, "we now present Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman, Distinguished Pig. The fame of this unique animal has spread to the far corners of the earth, attracting many valuable visitors to our state. Many of you will recall that day last summer when the writing appeared mysteriously on the spider's web in Mr. Zuckerman's barn, calling attention to all and sundry to the fact that this pig was out of the ordinary. This miracle has never been explained, although learned men have visited the pig pen to study and to observe the phenomenon. In the last analysis, we simply know that we are dealing with a supernatural force. We should feel proud and grateful. In the words of the spider's web, ladies, we present to you some pig." Wilbur blushed. He stood perfectly still and tried to look his best. "This is a magnificent animal," continued the loudspeaker. "It's truly terrific. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the smoothness and the whiteness of the coat. Observe the spotless skin, the healthy pink glow of ears and snout." "That'll be the buttermilk," said Mrs. Arable to Mrs. Zuckerman. "Note the general radiance of this animal. Then remember the day when Radiant appeared clearly on the web. Whence came this mysterious writing? Not from the spider, we can rest assured of that. Spiders are very clever at weaving webs, but needless to say, they can't write. Oh, can't they? Murmured Charlotte to herself. Ladies and gentlemen, continued the loudspeaker, I must not take any more of your time. On behalf of the governors of the fair, I have the honour of awarding a special prize of $25 to Mr. Zuckerman, together with a handsome bronze medal in token of our appreciation of the part played by this pig, this radiant, terrific, humble pig, in attracting so many visitors to the county fair. Now, Wilbur had been feeling dizzier and dizzier throughout this rather long, complimentary speech. When the crowd began to cheer and clap again, he suddenly fainted away. His legs collapsed, his mind went blank, and he fell to the ground unconscious. What's wrong? Asked the loudspeaker. What's going on, Zuckerman? What's the trouble with your pig? Avery was kneeling by Wilbur's head, stroking him. Mr. Zuckerman was dancing about, fanning the pig with his cap. He's all right, said Zuckerman. He gets these spells sometimes. He's modest, and he can't stand praise. Well, we can't give a prize to a dead pig, said the loudspeaker. It's never been done. He isn't dead, hollered back Zuckerman. He's just fainted. He gets embarrassed easily. Go, Lurvy, run for some water. Lurvy sprang from the judge's ring, and he disappeared. Templeton poked his head up from the straw. He noticed that the end of Wilbur's tail was within reach, and he grinned. I'll tend to this, he chuckled. He took Wilbur's tail in his mouth and bit it just as hard as he could bite. The pain revived Wilbur. In a flash he was back on his feet. Ouch! He screamed. Hooray! Yelled the crowd. He's up! That pig's up! Good work, Zuckerman! That's some pig! And everybody was delighted. Mr. Zuckerman was the most pleased of all. He sighed with relief. No one had seen Templeton. The rat had done his work well. And now one of the judges climbed into the ring with the prizes. He handed Mr. Zuckerman 2 $10 bills and a $5 bill. Then he tied the medal around Wilbur's neck, while Wilbur blushed. Avery put his hand out to shake hands with the judge, and the judge shook hands with Mr. Zuckerman too. The crowd cheered while a photographer took a picture of the pig. So we've got 2 pictures to show you. Here we have Wilbur, really rather not feeling so good. And here's that celebration. You can see the photographer taking the photo, everyone clapping and cheering. A great feeling of happiness swept over the Zuckermans and the Arables. This was the greatest moment of Mr. Zuckerman's life. It is deeply satisfying to win a prize in front of a lot of people. As Wilbur was being shoved back into the crate, Lurvy came charging through the crowd with his pail of water. Without hesitating a second, he dashed the water at Wilbur, but in his excitement he missed, and the water went all over Mr. Arable and Mr. Zuckerman. They got soaking wet. For goodness sake, bellowed Zuckerman, who was really drenched. What ails you, Lurvy? Can't you see the pig's all right now? You asked for some water, Lurvy said meekly. But I didn't ask for a shower bath, said Mr. Zuckerman, and at that the crowd roared with laughter. Finally Mr. Zuckerman had to laugh too, and of course Avery was tickled to find himself so wet, and he immediately started to act like a clown. He pretended he was taking a shower bath. He made faces and danced around and rubbed imaginary soap under his armpits. Then he dried himself with an imaginary towel. Avery, stop it, cried his mother. Stop showing off. But the crowd loved it. Avery heard nothing but the applause. He liked being a clown in a ring with everybody watching in front of a grandstand. When he discovered there was a little water left in the pail, he raised the pail high in the air and dumped it over his head. The children in the grandstand screamed with appreciation. At last things calmed down. Wilbur was loaded into the truck. Avery was led from the ring by his mother and placed on the seat of the truck to dry off. The truck, driven by Mr. Arable, crawled slowly back to the pig pen. Avery's wet trousers made a big wet spot on the seat. Now, that's the end of that chapter. There's only a couple left in this book. Chapter 21 will be in the next video. Bye for now.